there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
And welcome to another episode of I Never Knew, or Inc. by Life Coach Maureen. Today I have another fabulous guest, and this guy is a lot of energy and he's awesome. He is the fiance of my queen, Sabrina, who you all have already heard on one of our episodes, I believe episode 4. And I'm so excited that he reached out because I think his story is one of significance, and it is dealing with addiction and sobriety. I had my own experience with being the partner of a alcoholic, so I'm really excited to hear the other side of it and get the information. So today we are going to be speaking with Dane Walthers. Welcome, Dane.
Welcome. Snapping is clapping, right?
You know what? Keep your girls' rules to her podcast. I get to create all new things. I say clap, jumping jacks. I don't care what you do. I'm pretty easygoing here. There's no rules, so no rules is a good thing.
I love it.
So we're going to start off with, obviously, the point of this podcast for me is storytelling. And storytelling to me is really why we're here in this world. Is you went through an experience, and if this experience can help someone else, I think that's what we're here to do in this life, is to help one another. So let's start from the beginning, a little background about yourself, and we'll just go right into your story.
Awesome. Well, Maureen, thank you for having me on. I absolutely adore your energy, and you're a bright light with Sabrina. So I love that. I love watching you guys on her version and the different platforms you guys are on. You're just awesome. So I appreciate you supporting our queen. And it's so great to see what you guys have built. So I'm so thankful that you've made time to reach out. I did look forward to this all week, so this is awesome.
Me too. Let's go. Let's get to know Dane. And I want to say this, listeners, if you're not seeing this on YouTube on the actual video, if you picture Dane, he's got a Howie Mandel vibe about him. Both the energy and the look it's almost uncanny. So I love it. It's like a doppelganger of Howie Mandel, and I freaking just love it.
I do like that guy. I think we share some of the same craziness too. I think I was always afraid of germs for a long time, and I've had to get rid of that. But no, good guy. So that's great. But you know what? I think I was just looking forward to sharing my experience, strength, and hope, and talk about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Addiction, recovery, whatever the topic is. The biggest thing for me is I just want people to know that there's a lot of ways to do this. And like, life is awesome when you can be authentic and get rid of the stuff that is a slave, the stuff that just occupies my mind all day long back in active addiction. So I think it's a great topic to share. I think it's so wonderful that you're allowing me to come on here. Actually, I thank Sabrina for really setting it up. But yeah. I look forward to chatting with you on it. And I think, I'm nothing special. I was brought up in the Midwest, a really big family, 8 kids, born in a really, I'm going to call it strict Catholic family. Not strict in the mindset that bad things happen, but definitely a lot of nuns and priests coming to the house and, part of the family, but kind of a great upbringing. I had great parents, great experiences coming up, and nothing that I blame my disease or the addiction. I don't blame any of my childhood for that. I think I just, I got lucky. I say I got because today I live a life that is possible because of the tools I got in sobriety or getting sober. So some see it as an affliction. I now see it as an opportunity. But just as a child growing up in a big family, I was kind of in the back. I never felt like really significant, I guess. I felt like, my parents did a really good job trying to make me feel significant. I feel as if they did a really good job telling me I was special, amazing, I could do anything. They allowed me to play every sport I wanted to play. My father was really big about, try everything. A lot of parents want you to do one thing and they want you to really just get good at that one thing. I had a really great opportunity to play everything from hockey, swimming, wrestling, the whole deal, the whole gamut. And I was really small growing up. So some of those sports I only stayed with for a while because I got the opportunity to be like Superman on ice a lot of times because I was real small. So when I'd get checked, I'd like fly. And I was over that real quick. And then got into the individualized sports. Real high energy, real anxious growing up. And, I got everything I wanted and needed. My parents did a really good job. I don't know how they did it, Maureen. I mean, you've raised kids, I've raised kids, and I can't even fathom how you do it at that number, that level. But they owned it. They owned it as parents. I'm super, super proud of what they did. Actually, not funny story, but this morning I was really thinking about my dad. Isn't that crazy? I don't know why it hits us, but we all grieve differently. But this morning I was really, and I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person now, so an ex-Catholic. But I think the religion is beautiful. So I took what I liked and I left the rest. But most of my family in Catholicism. However, I had the opportunity to be authentic and do what my gut and my soul really believe. So, and it's evolving. But the great news was I had a great childhood. And I say all of that to say this. Many people wonder, is it nature versus nurture? I believe just for me, that it's in my cellular makeup that alcohol just a little bit and a lot's not enough. And I'll talk about how I used alcohol as a tool, but it was just a tough go for a while, and I'll get into that. But growing up, I did just the normal things that kids do, sports and so forth, girlfriends, all that good stuff. But I always felt like I wasn't, like I was different. And I hear a lot of my guys say that. Today I work with guys who are finding a better way of life without alcohol and drugs. But I hear it so much in stories that we just felt a little different. I can't say exactly what it was, but I could be in a room full of people and feel all alone. And I remember just kind of not feeling like I was enough, or that huge imposter syndrome that you hear people talk about. So it was at maybe middle school when I started to feel like, what, I'm different than everybody else. I don't know, and I don't want to be, but I feel like I am. And that's start the story. Alcohol was always in our house growing up. We could always have wine, at the altar we would have, the blood of Christ, they called it. But at the dinner table, we could sip on wine and not get in trouble for it. And we thought it was kind of cute, and everybody would laugh because, I'm like, I like this stuff. But they knew that I wasn't in excess with it because they wouldn't allow me to be. But fast forwarding to middle school, we had this little not pool house, but little shed or something that you could change in and stuff. And there were these little cans of Budweiser, the red and white cans. They were like the minis, like half of my liquid death here. And I remember having a couple really fast with my friend, and it was actually hot because the refrigerator was like unplugged or something. So it was just kind of silly that we were even doing this, but we drank a bunch real fast, or maybe 2 or 3, I don't know. But it was enough to feel that feeling that I've chased ever since. That feeling of invincibility, that feeling of nothing matters, that feeling of everything's okay and I'm like perfect right where I am. So that's where it started. That's where everything kind of started. And I would chase that the rest of my life until I got help. And that's kind of where it started. I would grow up. I would go to high school and had my girlfriend who I would actually marry and be with for about 20 years. And she was really great because she never gave me a hard time for drinking. She thought it was funny and cute, and because I would get really outgoing more so than I am naturally, and just became lighthearted and funny. It was very rare that it ever became a problem until later. But it was actually like Dane's the fun guy. That's what made me feel significant. I would drink and be funny and fun and social. And then it became something of a tool. So I was working for the Red Cross, traveling a lot as a phlebotomist with a team of nurses in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, South Dakota. And I was always outgoing, super outgoing. And I think part of it too was we would typically leave on like sometimes a Sunday, but like a Monday, or just depended. And we would stay in like hotels. So these team of nurses, we were like family. We'd go out and, it worked like Monday through Thursday, sometimes Friday, but we would go out to dinner together and then go back to our rooms. But every night I drank because it was like a party. We were away from home. We worked hard all day. We had people passing out and bouncing their heads off of gymnasium floors, and we shared crazy stories. And it was a lot of fun. But I say all that to say this, fast forwarding, I met the director of the tissue bank at the Red Cross, and this is where it really got accelerated. I was taking his blood, and I was going to school to be a paramedic, did my EMT, and I really wanted to do the paramedic route. And he had said, "Oh, your anatomy, you did a great job with my taking my blood." And he said, "Come over and talk to me. We have a couple positions you could do." And I told him I was really happy with what I did. I was making really good money. I was young, traveling. It was fun. And then partying really hard on the weekends and traveling a lot. I really liked where my life was at that time. And alcohol was not being talked about yet with family or friends or me having an issue. And I remember going over and talking to him at the tissue bank. And he had said, we have a recovery text. I'd like you to look into it. You might like it. And I looked into it and I found it fascinating. And I couldn't believe at that young age of like 22 that I was going to be, flying on the weekends and doing these tissue recoveries in either an OR, an ER, a morgue, or sometimes at a funeral directory facility. It just depended. But I wanted to do it. And it was per diem, so I could do it on top of my full-time role. And it was still within the Red Cross, so it helped with other benefits and so forth. So I took the job. Didn't feel ready for it. Was super scared. I remember the first time that I went on a recovery, I was like, the whole way there, I was super scared because I'm like, man, I hope I don't freak out or get nervous or pass out or, what have you. Because I had never really, I've done dissection with animals, but I've never worked on cadavers. So, and these folks are, when they donate their tissue, that's bone, skin, connective tissue. So we're taking things like veins, tendons, just whatever we got consent for. So we would take, skin and whatever we had consent for, we would take. Not large organs. The heart was the biggest that we would take. But my point is that I wasn't ready. I felt like, I wasn't quite sure if I'd be able to handle it. And it went really well. My brain did really well in focusing on the task. I didn't get overwhelmed with the first donor we had. And it was super exciting. My family was like, "What are you doing?" They couldn't believe it. And I was making amazing money. And about 2 weeks into it, we had a really tough case. People die from car accidents, suicide, random accidents. It wasn't cancer or anything like that because then we couldn't use their tissue. And it was typically within a couple hours of them expiring, we would show up. So we'd hop on a little King Air airplane and get to wherever we need to get to. But about 2 weeks in, there was a recovery that I was on, and it was a snowmobiler that was decapitated. Incidentally, he was drinking alcohol. We on the plane, we would all get to read the chart and get familiar with what we were about to see. We already knew what we had consent for because we had packed the surgical sterile packs already to go do the recovery. And we would show up with these big coolers with all of our equipment in it, and then we would come back. The equipment would be tossed in the back, and then there would be tissue coming back in the coolers that would then go to the different processing places where they would process the tissue. Okay. But that really messed me up when I saw that, and they did a good job. The American Red Cross at the time did a really good job offering and they had people that actually did that. None of us ever wanted it. We were all way too cool, way too tough to admit that we didn't like what we saw. And I was probably the least qualified person there. So everybody who had really, had been doctors or had really nice backgrounds, and I just didn't. I was going to school when I was young, but I was really excited about the opportunity. But I'd get home, and we would get home at, I think at that particular time, I got home at maybe 2 or 3 in the morning, and there was no one to talk to. And I remember I had to work the next day. I'm thinking this is a Sunday, and I had to work on Monday, I'm thinking, and I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't wake up my wife and say, hey, this is what I would actually give her ideas of what I was dealing with, when I was headed there. We didn't have the ones we do today. So I looked like Batman. I had like 2 pagers and like a flip StarTech phone. And so I couldn't text, but I would like call her while we were waiting on our driver or whatever. And I'd be like, you're never going to believe this. This guy's head has been separated from his body. And I'd give her like the skinny on it. And she would be amazed. She's like, what? She couldn't believe it. Anyway, I got home. I couldn't talk to anybody, couldn't sleep, had to get to bed. So what I did is I crushed a bunch of Amstel, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12. I don't remember, but it was a lot more than I should have. And then I couldn't work the next day because I was super hungover, and my ex-wife had to call in sick for me. And when I'm sick, when I was sick back then, it was a really big deal because somebody else had to change their life to go out on the road for a week. So it wasn't as if I was just missing work. I was disrupting a bunch of other people's lives to do that. But I would continue to do it over and over and over again. And it just, I don't know why I just wasn't registering that I had an issue, because I was functional. I was making good money. I was paying the bills. I was traveling a lot. It was with the family. It was great.
Can I
No.
stop you for 1 second? The other thing I'm hearing too is it doesn't sound like anyone was making you accountable. Like no one was pointing out that this was a problem. So you were just kind of going along, right?
Totally right. And I didn't know this about you, but you had said you had an ex or somebody in your life that drank, correct? So does any of this ring a bell? Like, did you ever have to come to the plate and, help? Was there any kind of codependency issues?
100%. And, having children with him, and, I would bring the kids, put them in the van in, midnight, to go pick him up from a bar, or not know where he was. Call police stations, call hospitals. It was this consistent, my life surrounded around his addiction. It was,
yeah.
I had to make sure that he was always okay. And that's the codependency part of that you just kind of step back because they're not okay. What's interesting to me, Dane, is, and this is really a good conversation because I think a lot of people will say, well, my addiction came from a really traumatic childhood. My addiction came from a really bad marriage. My addiction came from a very stressful job or something that happened. You're saying to us, it does not matter. You didn't have a bad upbringing. You did not have that stressful of a job. You were having fun with your buddies. You didn't seem to have a bad marriage. So you're saying addiction can come from anywhere. You don't have to have a cause for the addiction. Is that correct?
I love that you're saying that, Maureen, because you're right. You're absolutely right. So most of the clients or most of the people I've worked with in the past and work with today have some really heavy stories that freaking hurt my heart so much to hear. Like grown ass men in their 60s sometimes that carried this stuff way too long. And I didn't have much stuff to carry. I really didn't. I will learn later in my life, though, that my childhood, there was some stuff that maybe wasn't fair or that I didn't deal with well, that much later in life I would learn about my inner childhood stuff, which is so heavy. And a lot of it I learned about after being sober for a decade, and I continue to work with today. But yeah, I love that that's a great point to bring that up. And I should do a better job bringing that up because I tell my story and it's never the same. I never memorize it. I just kind of tell it off the hip because somebody told me that when you share your story, what you speak may not even make sense, but somebody will hear what they need to hear, maybe get something out of it and maybe come forward and realize, wow, me too, type of thing. But I agree with you 100%. We all come from, I wasn't molested. I wasn't beat. My parents, could feed me every night. All these stories you hear, don't have those stories.
But
so that is a great point.
I want to say this, though. Even though on the outside looking in, people think, oh, you had the perfect life. You had no reason to be an alcoholic. What happens is it starts out as this fun thing that becomes this habit and this thing that I love to do. Now it's out of control. I started in nursing and I was working in an ER trauma center. And I can tell you this, and I worked graveyard shifts. And yeah, and I'm going to say this, in the medical field, you will find the most alcoholics and the most drug addicts. Because what people don't understand, thank you, is it is a stressful thing. You coming home and telling your wife is not the same as you talking to a fellow person who's dealing with the crazy when it's a full moon and, the behavioral health and all the terrible things that we see. I had a 14-year-old that came in from an ATV accident and the ATV had cut his leg off at the hip. And I remember them bringing the kid in and then bringing his leg in separate. Those are not things you can explain to people who are not there witnessing it. Or the worst child abuse beating that I saw in the trauma room. How can I come home to my husband who has a normal 9-to-5 job and my children and explain this trauma that I just saw? So what do? I'm going to self-medicate myself. I'm going to make myself feel better somehow, some way. Whether it's an addiction, whether it's overeating, whether it's, drugs, whether it's alcohol, whether there's a lot of self-destructive things that we do. But to say to you, you didn't have this traumatic childhood, I don't know why you're an alcoholic. There's other things that trigger things in us that we tend to go to addictions for that make us feel better, to self-soothe.
And I love that. I now know that you can hear what I'm saying because you're right. There's things, and I should have taken those debriefings that were offered. You guys want to have, they would offer them, and we would never take them. And secretly, I really wish somebody would have. And hear this: if anybody's listening to this, and you're in a situation where you are offered counseling, take it, because not only for yourself, but there's people who aren't brave enough to speak up that want it. I secretly wanted to talk about that. It bothered me the way they handled the head, and B, like, why was it so clean? Like, it looked like a scalp, it looked like it had been done surgically almost. And I didn't like how the bag, the plastic, like the blood was on the face with the plastic. Like, my brain just like I didn't like it. I didn't like seeing it. In the moment, it just seemed like, okay, this is bad. Wow, holy shit. But then that would stay with me. Like, I would see it in my dreams. I would think about it. And then I would question my own mortality all the freaking time. And the only time where I felt safe and okay was when I was buzzed or drunk. I wasn't afraid of dying when I was buzzed or drunk. I could sleep, and that's largely where it became a tool. But those debriefings, like, I think we're at a great age now because, like, counseling and therapy is becoming not sexy, but acceptable. And I think it's going to become more and more acceptable as the older generations are passing and the younger generations are realizing we don't have to be these tough, I don't want to use the word narcissistic, but tough, egotistical guys anymore. We can be whoever the hell we want to be, and it's interesting because I went for a walk on the beach this morning. I didn't really get into this. I was going to, but I took my shoes. He gave me these really great loafers, and I walked on the beach today with his shoes. I don't know why that was significant, but I was missing my dad, so I grabbed these shoes and I walked on the beach, and it was awesome. And the cool thing is the visual of the shoes, like by themselves, was a visual that my dad was gone. It was like a really clean transition or whatever. And it happened today. And this is years ago that my dad passed. So it was kind of interesting. That happened today, which is nuts. But my point is, it's a new time. And when my dad passed away, I actually, sucks to say this, but I actually got some freedom because he's really awesome, brilliant businessman, a good father. But he's from the old school, and you wear pink pants, he's going to say something about it. And I kind of got my freedom when and you know what? Towards the end, he wasn't even judging me. He got so used to me that he's like, Dane's just Dane. But there was a.
I love that. My mother's Irish Catholic, and there are two things that they live by. The two rules is judgment and guilt. So I totally get that. And finally, your parents, when you're the black sheep, they just kind of go, yeah, whatever. They're not gonna change, So I definitely resonate with that.
It's exactly that way with me. Even to this day, and I love my siblings, but they're really good at observing, making observations, and verbalizing those observations, whether they're kind or not. Just a lot of insecurities, It's a real freedom when you can be authentic and learn to be who you want to be, especially when you're not hurting people, but they're just not comfortable with it because it's not in their mold. But again, I would even drink over because it would allow me to feel accepted in my family. So at heart,
So you drank because you felt more accepted. I feel like the drinking for you was dulling some senses, whether it was insecurities or whether it was that trauma, and then fitting in with your family. Do you think that sounds about right?
I think that sounds very right. So it would dull a lot of and it would heighten a lot of my senses. So it would allow me to talk about emotional stuff that I wasn't comfortable talking about. I right away valued that I could be freaking authentic. I could say the stuff that I could say today back then when I was super insecure, super scared. And I kind of live in fear or love. And I don't live in both at the same time, but I'm constantly going back and forth. I'm getting much better today at living in love versus fear, living in abundance versus lack, and realizing that I don't need to be freaking perfect. I just need to be authentic. And that's the stuff we teach our guys. And when you can find that, watch the hell out because you're going to find somebody new and they're going to be free and they're going to be the best, most vibrant person they can be. And it's awesome. Uh-oh. And I thought again. I think that this is the thing, though, that really gets this across to everybody or anybody. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to learn day by day. And I try to repeat the things that have worked thus far. And it's worked. thus far. And we've been able to pass on what I've learned, what everybody's learned, and it's helping people today. And it's really an awesome place to be. But those senses that were not dulled, but heightened as far as being able to talk about emotions or feelings. And I would freaking cry a lot to like everybody, I remember it, but I remember feeling good about it, that emotional person would happen to, like my tough father-in-law. Like I would have conversations with him when we were drinking that I could not have sober. And that was really attractive with alcohol. But the good news is I would learn later how to be able to have those talks and those feelings without a buffer, without alcohol, without liquid courage. So
liquid courage, that's it. And I remember I was going through Al-Anon with my ex-husband when I was 9 months pregnant. And I remember just sitting there and thinking, why do I have to do this? And a lot of people with alcoholics and addicts sort of feel like it's not fair. So I love that you say, I was having this liquid courage, this ability to say these things that you wanted to say because you were never taught it was okay to be emotional and to be expressive and to be vulnerable. And I think that alcohol, all of us, every one of us have drank because and the way we behaved when we drank, we felt those inhibitions go away because the next day, no matter what it was, we could blame it on the alcohol, right? Is that something? Yep. Is that something when it becomes out of control that's part of the draw to it? Is I can say whatever I want to say and be myself, and then if it's not okay, I can just blame it on the alcohol.
I think that definitely is in my unconscious mind, or in my subconscious mind. I think that was a big thing. I do remember being able, even with my ex-wife, like it wasn't a culture in our house that we could really argue. It wasn't acceptable. I'd like get in trouble, and it would be this whole ritual which I was comfortable with, because now I realize I grew up with that ritual where disagreements, and then you don't talk for maybe a few hours, maybe a day. You just pass in the hallway and you don't say hey or whatever. And I grew up, and my parents did very well showing affection together and stuff, but they also had, they did the best they could with what they knew and what they had at the time. When we were growing up, I don't know how the hell they did it, but I married somebody that fit what I liked, what I knew anyway, what I was comfortable with. And when I would get wasted, I would feel confident speaking my mind. And wow, did not go well. Like everybody in my family would know, she would call everybody, rightfully so, and vent. And I would get scared to argue. Even Sabrina gets pissed because she's like, Dane, you need to be angry sometimes. Like you need to, it's okay. Like she starts talking loud, or she gets upset and gets passionate. And I love that she's Spanish. That's part of why I'm so attracted to her. And part of that is being passionate. She can be passionate, and we love that about her. But if it gets to be where I'm the topic or I'm the issue, I'm not comfortable right away. Let's go up. And she's trained me, taught me that.
That's a flight response right there. You
totally
programmed to flight whenever anything gets escalated at any point, rather than stay in that. And I'm like you. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm good. I'm out of here. I gotta go. I like avoid it. And my husband is the guy who's like, let's talk about it. I want to understand you better. Let's work it out so it doesn't happen again. I'm like, no, I don't know. I'm good. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm one of those. I'm fine. It's fine. It's all fine. So I.
What does fine stand for? Do you know what fine stands for? I know.
Oh, remind me. Oh. All right. We are having some technical difficulties, but that's okay. We don't even remember what fine stands for. So moving on.
But fine is not an answer. If I'm fine, I'm not fine usually. If I say I'm fine, I'm not fine. And Sabrina can see right through it, which is helpful, but past partners didn't. And Sabrina will say, let's taco about it, and we'll have to taco about it. But Fine is not a thing. It's not a thing I say anymore. I try not to say, but no, I wasn't fine. So many things are wrong, and in my mind, I thought drinking helped, but it really didn't. But the good news is we learn, we progress, we learn tools. But back then, the drinking allowed me to be authentic, to argue, to love, and to speak the way I wanted to. And then it's hard to leave, and then it became a point where I knew I needed to stop, but I didn't know how, and I tried, and it didn't work. I tried all the things. I tried switching from beer to wine, from beer to alcohol, and that was horrible. And I won't get into a drunk-a-log, but I tell you what, there's so many stories that are so crazy. From peeing into VCRs. Literally in college, I'm going to share this because I think that no matter how crazy your story is, you don't need to be ashamed, because when that alcohol is in your body, crazy things can happen. You can turn into somebody totally different. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody or do something totally stupid. I know I said horrible things, but the idea of where it takes you, it's super scary. And a lot of things happened that were negative, and I was super ashamed of the things that I did. And then that allowed me to then, again, like you mentioned, Maureen, soften some of those emotions or as you put it, kind of mute them or bring them down, the emotions or the feelings. Because I did some horrible stuff. I don't have the stories that some other guys have, but they're horrible in my book. Like I was on a 20-hour flight to China, and all I remember was looking at my, I'm freaking hyper. I'm excited about life. I'm just made this way. And being on a plane, like you get a little stir crazy. I got a little itchy. I had to move around. I had to walk around, and she gave me one of her Xanaxes, and pills never been my thing, but I know that they could be, so I don't mess with them. But I took a Xanax, and then it's all you can drink on like Cathay Pacific on the airline I was on. And I remember like 4 Merlots in. Well, I don't really remember 4 Merlots in, but I remember being like on multiple glasses of wine, or they're actually plastic cups. Wasn't fancy. Next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I look down, and I'm wearing these silk pajamas, like the cool kind. It's like these little knots, like they're Chinese like pajamas. And I look over, and there's nobody sitting next to me. I look over, and like three seats down, my ex-wife's looking at me, shaking her head, and I'm looking at her going, what is this? She's just shaking her head, and I had no idea what I did. And I was walking around hugging and trying to kiss on passengers. I was blacked out, and I had spilt Merlot all over my pants, and the wonderful stewardesses, took my clothes and soaked them with club soda or whatever and dressed me in these pajamas. And I could have done anything, and she could have told me whatever, and I would have not been able to argue it. That could have been really bad. Like, what if I was violent instead of loving? It could have been really, really, really bad. And that's when I got scared. That's when I was like, hey, this is bad. Or I would call my mom, and I would say, Mom, you would never believe what happened at work yesterday. And this happened and that happened, and, wanting her to be proud of me. And then she would say, you told me this yesterday. We were up till 2 a.m. talking. Don't you remember that? And I'd be like, oh yeah, but I freaking did not remember that. And then it really started to register, like, this is an issue. And then something happened that really put me in a position where I was accepting help, or at least open to the idea. And that was when my kids have never seen me drunk. When I say that, my son, who I'm super proud of, I have a transgender son who's just doing really great. And at the time, we're dressing him in pink and stuff like that. But I put him in the Suburban, and I drove to South Carolina from Atlanta, from Georgia, because they didn't sell alcohol on Sundays in Georgia, and I didn't prepare right. And I don't remember where my ex-wife was. And I keep saying ex-wife, but she should have been my ex-wife while I was drinking. And we ended up actually getting divorced when I got sober, which I'll get into, but if we have time.
I get
But
that. I get that.
yeah, totally nuts how that works.
Yeah.
And I basically got in the car with my kiddo and, just a youngster. Alex would never remember this. But I get there, and then South Carolina is like, no, we don't sell on Sundays. And I drove like however long, an hour, hour and a half. I don't know what it was, 2 hours. I don't know what the drive was, but it was long. And I ran into the store real quick, left my child in the Suburban, locked the door with the air on, and like, not okay, ever. Even though I could see the car, it was parked up front, but it doesn't justify. And then the light was off, like in the cooler area. And I was just like, I grabbed it, thought the light bulb was just out, and put my gross beer on the counter. And they're like, you can't buy that today. And dude, I was, it was so scary. And I was so disappointed in myself. I didn't know what to do. And that's when I started to drink and drive. It was never acceptable, because I had so many examples of why it's not acceptable. But I don't know what happened. I came home and maybe brought Alex to the grandparents or whatever, and then went to a bar and drank and then drove home. Thank goodness I got help shortly after that incident. I think around that time, my daughter was not born at that time, so she didn't see it ever. But it really got clear that, wow, I have an issue. So I end up coming back from a business trip. To fast forward, I'm blacked out by the time my ex-wife picks me up at the airport. Apparently I'm talking really rude to her and accusing her of cheating and just total craziness, which I would never do. She at that time would never have done that, and freaked her out. Anyway, long story short, she shared that with my family. My family came to me and said, hey, maybe you want to get help. Wasn't ready. A couple days later, really bad hangover. My oldest sister, got this great plan together with my ex-wife. They talked to my boss at the Red Cross. They figured out the rehab, everything, unbeknownst to me. And that day, I walked in the living room to do my same ritual on a Sunday, I believe, to watch the football game and crack all these beers. You know what? That Sunday, I went to Sam's Club, and I bought all these just cases of beer, bunch of food, because I was going to throw this party, to watch the Georgia game, UGA play. And it was the biggest lie ever. I totally lied to my ex-wife. I said, everybody canceled. Like, I bought all these queen crab legs and just an obsessive amount of beers, like just tons. And I said, they all canceled. They're not coming. And really what I did is I built myself a stash so I wouldn't get in trouble for spending too much on alcohol, because I was spending ridiculous amounts of money drinking at home, not even going out to bars. I always liked drinking at home. But that day I was hungover. She asked me if I would consider getting evaluated. And I was miserable enough that I said, yeah, I'll consider it. That's fine. She goes, cool, will you agree to do it tomorrow? I said, yeah. So I that night went to a Mexican place. I drank a whole bunch, like I normally do. Went in on Monday, and I was just amazed. I couldn't believe that I was doing it, but I did. I went, and the guy interviewed me. I totally lied on the survey I filled out. I drink 2 to 3 a night type of thing. He saw right through it. He had me blowing a breathalyzer, and he said, did you drive here? I said, no. He said, good, because you would go to jail if you got pulled over. You're illegal. I said, there's no way. I didn't drink today. I drank last night. He said, well, it's still in your system. And then it clicked. I'm like, wow, I do this every day. I'm illegal every day. I'm driving vehicles for the company every day like this. Had no idea. I should have, because I went to school and I knew how the body processes, drink an hour type of thing. But my body, A, wasn't processing the alcohol the same, and B, I didn't even know how much I drank. So he said, hey, you're going to stay here. I said, I can't. I have a job, blah, blah, blah. And that's when they said, let's get organized. Your work's going to pay you like you're not even gone. Everything's been covered. My sister was brilliant. Just brilliant. To this day, I love her to death. And she also paid like 20 grand for me to go through rehab. And he basically said, I'm not going to, let you pay me back. This is a gift. If you relapse within a year, you will pay me back 100% of all of it. So we're working really hard to just, if she's not going to take it, give it to one of her kids or something, because she's an amazing woman. She went over to Russia to adopt 3 kids, and she's awesome. And I want to reciprocate that huge act of kindness, and that her husband agreed to that, because that's his money too. I wouldn't be cool with that if Sabrina's like, hey, we're going to spend 20 grand for my brother to get help. I mean, today I would be, but back then I wouldn't have been.
Right.
But my point is, all that had to happen the way it did.
Right.
And the bottom is right where it needed to be.
And I was just, thank you for saying that. Going through AA and Al-Anon as I did in my marriage, they always say there is a rock bottom, and sometimes you think you're there, and rock bottom can have a basement. And what I remember the most going through Al-Anon and AA with my ex was, they said, think of life as a building, and you're on the elevator, and when it comes to alcoholism or addictions, you choose where you're going to get off. And everybody gets off at a different floor. And so that's one of the things, as we start to wrap up here, that you wanted to talk about is how different it is for everybody, what it looks like for each person. So someone listening today, no matter what phase or stage they're in, how do they take that first step? How do you help, and especially since you work more, with men to do this, what is the first thing you help them to get through to start this process?
So I think it's super important to be okay with asking for help. It's also super impressive when you're in that horrible place to be able to do that yourself and not say, hey, I've got a problem. Can I, but make the phone calls, make the Google searches. We didn't have Google back then. We had the yellow pages. But own it. Be like, I'm not liking this. Just, even if it's nicotine and you're over it, you don't want to smell like smoke. You want to be done with it. Just say to your doctor, I can't stop. I want to, I need to, but it's just too strong. You're not weak. This stuff is designed. I mean, alcohol wasn't necessarily designed to be addictive, but it is. It changes the receptors in your brain. It changes your physiology. You can't do it just off willpower if you're somebody like I was, a daily drinker. It changes think of it as it changes your anatomy in your brain. And it's not a willpower. It's not a strength thing. A lot of these people would sit on their couch and sweat for a couple of days or a week, and get through it. Super dangerous. You don't need to do it that way. Detox for me was amazing. They gave me a bunch of medicines. It was the biggest high drunkenness state I've ever been in detox, and then they brought me down. It was awesome. I mean, it wasn't awesome. Far from awesome, but as far as having cravings and being uncomfortable and the craziness, it wasn't that. The nurses, the doctors are very good. The addictionologists are very good. We are very good at getting people help with it. We don't do that part, but the people that we partner with do an awesome job at it, and you're not alone. But make the call. Realize that you have to speak up about it. You have to be transparent with where you are right now. Don't just the more honest you are, the quicker they can help you, the quicker you can get help. And AA is not the answer for everybody. 12 steps was great for me. I took what I liked. I left the rest. I still give back to the community. I still go to meetings to support the guys that go there. I still go there if I'm feeling depressed or down, because as somebody in my role, when I'm on call working with people, we travel to work with these people where they live, so they can, like anesthesiologists, for instance, all of them drink. It seems like it's nuts. They don't want to go to rehab. They don't want to be seen in a parking lot in AA because they may lose their license. So we actually have a way where we can go to their house, and it's 100% confidential. No one's going to know. So when you do that, when you ask for the help, know that there's always a way that you can do it. It doesn't have to be AA. I didn't want to go to meetings every night for the rest of my life. I don't want to be addicted to meetings. It works for a lot of people. I've learned today that different strokes for different folks. Everybody does things the way they feel as if they should do it. However, I really believe there's so many tools, but everybody says go to AA. And I think that hurts a lot of people. There's a lot of limited beliefs in those rooms, but there's a lot of greatness in those rooms. I do so much outside of that for my sobriety today. Like I'll go on 100-mile bike rides, and it's like a huge meditation for me. I love it. You know, I was on my bike a while back, and Bob, who's like a founder of AA, you know, came to me. I'm acting as if I'm having a conversation with him, and I'm thinking, what would he say to me today if I could interview him, like on a podcast, like you and I are doing?
Yeah.
And I had this like conversation in my head with him as if he was speaking to me. And I literally, I'm telling you, you know what he said to me? And I spoke for him, obviously, in my brain, because I don't believe that he was necessarily talking to me. But he said, damn it, Dane. Like, it's 20, this is a while back, so it'd be like this, it's 2021, and you've changed nothing in AA since the 30s. What the hell? We know so much more about the human brain, but we're not using any of that stuff that we know. We're telling people if they don't do this and that, they'll drink again. We're telling people that they have to do this, that, and the other. If they don't, they'll drink again. That's bullshit.
I love it.
But we hear it, it sounds good, we adopt it, and to me, it's just like being in the Catholic religion, and you're going to burn in hell and brimstone if you don't do the rosary, blah, blah, blah. Dude, so old school. Like, not even effective. If you don't believe me, look at the numbers. There's a reason there's new faces every week in these meetings.
Yeah.
And no one wants to talk about it because they're too goddamn scared. Same reason they won't talk in the church about these priests molesting kids. They won't talk about the fact that this shit isn't true. Like, I'm not 10 anymore. I'm sorry. Someone said, how could you turn your back on the Catholic religion? I said, I'm not 10 anymore. I also don't believe in Santa. Great if you do, but I'm being authentic, and I respect the people that do. But I think take a look at what we're doing and ask yourself, if you, Maureen, know how the brain works. You know about the unconscious mind and how powerful that the whole iceberg thing works. And we don't know what we don't know, but we're adopting these ideas that are so old and not accurate, scientifically proven not to be accurate, but we're still doing it. So lots of help out there. Find what works for you. Take what you like, leave the rest. In no way, shape, or form am I speaking bad about a 12-step group or AA. It's magical.
And I love what you're saying. Just like the mindfulness movement and the mental health awareness movement that I'm so passionate about is changing. We're doing things online. You can get therapists online. You can get prescriptions online. It's time to say, we don't have to do AA because that's what we always did. It's time to say there's pieces of this that work, but we're going to be able to think outside the box now, and let's do something that works for everybody. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. And I love that you're saying that. So if I were to ask you, as we close up, I have two more questions for you. If I were to ask you, you're going to go downtown, you live in Florida. What city in Florida do you guys live in?
Boca Raton. It's like a fake world down here. Every blade of grass is perfect. Every palm tree is beautiful. I hate going out of town because I miss it. I miss this fake land we live in.
So if you were going downtown Boca Raton and I said you have to bring a big poster and you're going to have 100,000 people marching behind you, what's your poster going to say? What is your movement that you're going to do to change the world?
Wow. That's so great. That's such a great question. I want to say don't do it alone, whatever your struggle is. It's such a lonely place. And, you know, whether you're an introvert, extrovert, I think everybody does well with community, with support, with freaking love. So many people like to judge or tell you how you're supposed to do it. But you don't need to be alone, and you don't need to suffer alone. The opposite of addiction is connection or community, I like to say. And it's, I've heard that, I agree with it, but you don't need to do it alone. And whether it's a spiritual advisor, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's a family member or a friend or a sobriety coach or whoever, and don't give up. I mean, if you find a group that, listen, and I talked about these 12-step groups, they're very different in different places. So to blanket statement say this is the way to do it with this group or organization, it's different everywhere in the country. You know, I've been to meetings all over the world. They're very different in Peru. You know, I spent like almost 11 months in Peru going to meetings over there. They're very different than they are here. I wouldn't have gotten sober effectively in a 12-step group necessarily the way I did here. So don't do it alone. And when I would like to offer the suggestion that when you look for the group, if it's not a fit, you'll know. If it is a fit, you'll know. Just like partners. For me, I just know, or I feel as if I know. But yeah, don't do it alone.
I love it. That's a great movement. Is there any?
And I think sobriety is sexy. That's what I should have said.
Woo!
Sobriety is sexy. That is our mantra. It is so sexy when you can have an intelligent conversation at midnight versus having to clean up puke.
Oh, that just said it all. I flippin' love that one. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. So, is there a hotline that anyone, anywhere can reach out to when they're at that finally rock bottom and they say, you know what, I want to do something and I don't know what I can do? Is there a place for them to reach out? Where would you, if someone called you? There
is, and I'm actually on call right now, and Fridays are typically very busy, so have had anxiety throughout this whole podcast, and if I spoke fast, it's probably why. But Fridays are pretty busy, and Saturdays are busy, Sundays are busy. But yes, 1-800-410-6825. And if you're worried about forgetting that, message me, DM Dane Walthers, which you'll totally misspell. But get a hold of Maureen, and she'll hook you up with us. And we'll send you a bunch of cool stuff, lanyards, T-shirts, bracelets, whatever you want. It's got our numbers. And also our website is sobersociety.solutions. Sobersociety.solutions, another great place to go. And then our Facebook group called Sober Society 365. So Sober Society is a division of Human Better 365, which is a female-owned business by our wonderful queen, Sabrina Victoria. She is the owner and I'm going to say co-creator, but she's really the brains and the muscle behind it. She wrote the content in our wonderful program. You know, I obviously brought what I got through 12-step stuff and through the organizations and rehabs and detoxes, different facilities I've worked with. So we kind of grabbed everything we liked and put it together.
Yeah, I love that. And guys, I'm going to have this on the episode graphics. I'm going to have all of this information in the podcast description, everything. So 1-800-410-6825, guys. Sobriety.solutions. And like I said, we'll have all of that. Sober Society 365.solutions, right?
No, the Facebook group is Sober Society 365, and then the website is sobersociety.solutions.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is super weird for people because they want to do that calm.
I know. Okay, as we close up, I ask every single guest, what is your, especially now that you are super sober and wonderful, what is your shameless self-indulgence that you do for yourself now?
Oh, I do a lot.
Give me all of them.
What is my shameless? So do you want to hear one that's really gross? And it's Friday night, and Sabrina's with a client up north. So she won't be coming home this weekend. I'm going to go get some Ben & Jerry's, and I'm going to eat it all by myself, like this size one. And it gives me horrible gas, and I'm still going to do it.
What flavor of Ben & Jerry's?
I'm like dairy intolerant, so I don't do dairy. But when I do Ben & Jerry's.
Oh, my God. And while she's on, which is very, very, very thoughtful of you. I can absolutely appreciate that. So,
and I'm going to go a little further with it because it's Friday night. I'm feeling a little silly. I'm a triathlete, so tomorrow I'm going to be riding in a Peloton, and my poor buddies are going to hate me. So I'm going to have to hang towards the back. But that's my rude-ass, gross indulgence, but I'm going to do it. And Sabrina...
crop dusting on a a triathlon.
Well, I'm only riding tomorrow. We're training, but I'm going to be in the back. Yeah. But I'm going to go get me some of the, I don't know what I'll get. There's so many good flavors. Do you do ice cream?
I do, but I'm strictly.
Like dairy, the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
I'm
What's your flavor?
I'm a Rocky Road girl.
Rocky Road's good. Yeah, there's one that I like. I don't know why I'm not recalling the name of it. It's got the talk show host on it. Midnight something maybe or something. I don't know. I'll let you know. But yeah, my ice cream is my thing when I can do it.
I love it. That and Death by Chocolate. That's my other favorite one. Well, thank you so much for your wisdom, for your story, for sharing your vulnerability story. And I really think that our listeners, any of you out there that are ready to take that step, you just look at Dane and you see how amazing he is and how he was able to, be truthful about it. Once you own it, you can change it. And I think that's the hardest part. Let go of the shame and the guilt so you can take that first step and have that movement. Don't let that stop you. And Dane, it has just been an absolute pleasure. You go enjoy your Ben and Jerry's and and go Netflix and Ben and Jerry's is what I'll tell you. So
can I offer another plug real quick because I forgot to do it? Yeah. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week, we have what's called the Sober Lounge. The link can be found in the Facebook group. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. People who love somebody, know somebody, or are somebody who struggles with alcohol or addiction are welcome on that call. So maybe you're not even using, maybe you're thinking of stopping, or maybe you love somebody who's using alcohol or drugs. You're welcome to get on that call. We talk about solutions every week.
That is amazing. Did you hear that, guys? 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sober Lounge, and that is on the Sober Society 365 Facebook group page. You'll be able to find that link and go in there. What a wonderful thing. Right there, guys. You don't even have to leave your house. And you want to get that help and that support. Sabrina and Dane doing amazing things to be able to reach you. And so there is no excuse. There is absolutely no excuse. You can't say, I can't find support, because we just gave this ability for you to get that support, even if it's your first steps before you can take a bigger step. This sounds wonderful to have a community that's been there, understands you, and will be there for you with no judgment and nothing but love. Nothing but love.
Show up with your Ben and Jerry's and your pajamas on. You're more than welcome.
Yes, that always wins the more brownie points. All right, honey. You have a wonderful weekend without your queen, and I appreciate you so much, and I'm so jealous I can't put my feet in the ocean quite yet until I make my move. So
come down and visit us. I'll put my toes in the ocean tomorrow for you. You can live vicariously through me. I love that ring.
Totally. Oh, thank you.
Gorgeous.
My husband, he done good, huh?
He done good. Good job.
He done did good. All right, honey, you have an awesome night, and we will talk to you soon.
Salud. Ciao for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.